So before I get started, I wanted to answer a couple of emails I got. One email got, why wasn't I covering this all with like a really thin balsa wood and finishing it up? I didn't see the need to do it. It just didn't make any sense to me that I needed to do it. So I just wanted to build a quick, fun airplane that I could just get together and fly in like less than 3 months total build time. So that's one reason I'm just doing this whole thing out of foam and fiberglass, and there was virtually no balsa wood in it. A little bit in the floorboard of the main deck. Another email I got was asking about any testing in strength and rigidity. As I build each part, I'm going to test kind of like the hinge joint. I've got hinges mounted on these. As I put the top glass cloth on, I had to make sure that the hinges are already in here, and I'll talk about that once I start to glass this. Right now I'm just kind of playing catch up on some emails before I start, if you're just logging in now. I see some people popping in. Another email I got it was really complex. It asked like 15 questions, but the bottom line is this is just a fun airplane. It's made to drop parachute systems and candy drops. This is just a Frankenstein airplane that is going to be really, really big. So that's really all there is to it. It's just a contraption plane, and that's all it really is. And that's pretty, I mean, those 3 emails were the biggest emails I got last night. Was why wasn't I covering this whole thing in balsa wood, which it's a styrofoam airplane. I don't want to sand balsa wood and then do all that. I'm going to put a couple of coat of primer on this and really lightly sand it and then hit it with silver paint. Oh, one thing that I did get about 5 questions about is how much resin do you really need to have on glass cloth? And there's an awful lot of opinion out there on this, and I by no means am saying I'm right. But think about it like this. If you're building a pair of landing gear completely out of fiberglass, you have to have some kind of substance that's going to hold all that glass cloth together, or the carbon fiber. So you would need enough resin to bond all those layers, and sometimes you'll use like a vacuum bag or whatever to pull all the air out to make sure you got good penetration in there. But all I am doing is adhering glass cloth to foam. So I've got a base layer to paint on. The glass is giving me some strength, but my whole goal is to get the glass cloth laminated onto the surface with the absolute minimum amount of resin needed, because resin is heavier than the primer. So I would never put another coat of resin on it. However, if when I go to sand it, I were to sand through an edge and have bare foam, I would put a little bit of resin, resin on that and let it cure and resand it. Because if you sand through and then you paint this, any place that's exposed to the paint will be eaten away and create a little bit of a void. So we're close enough. I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So what I'm hoping to do tonight is get both of these glassed. I don't know how long it's going to take, because I'm going to show you there's going to be some little panes in the rear end on this. Basically, I have hinges, and you can see them. Hang on, I'm going to go ahead and change cameras. Hang on a minute. Okay, basically I have 4 hinges in my elevator. I'm not sure how good you can see it here, but I have, yeah, you can see it. I have little patches of fiberglass cloth here that I'm going to put down first, and then I'm going to put the cloth on that covers the whole thing, and that gives me a little bit more strength where my hinges are. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this up. Last night, if you remember, I always started with 3 pumps, and to kind of catch up, I always use the West system. I use the West 105. I use the 105 for the resin and the 205 for my hardener. And that is the fast hardener. And I give 3 pumps of each. And if I get a little bit of air, I give it a little bit extra. I mix up my resin and hardener. And then what I'm going to do is add a little bit of alcohol. I add about 1/8. So if I've got an inch in there, I add about another 1/8 of an inch on top of it. And if I want my consistency to be somewhere between syrup, like you put on your pancakes, and chocolate milk, which is thicker than white milk, plain milk. I want to mix that up. I use the alcohol because a straight resin and hardener is a little thick. It's kind of hard to squeegee out, use a brush with. It sticks sometimes. When you drag your brush or your roller, it can cause the cloth to drag. So what I'm going to do here first, and I'm going to be really, really careful, and I don't want to get this on my hinges either, at least not on the hinge joint, but I'm going to hold my finger down a little bit on this cloth to try to get that cloth on there. And I don't want to get, now I do put just a little bit of 3-in-1 oil on my hinge, so if I do hit it with the epoxy a little bit, it doesn't freeze up my hinge. And when you got a little bitty piece of fiberglass like this here, you're going to have to hold it down with your fingers a little bit. And if you can't get in there real tight, you can take a brush and get right up against that hinge. And I think you can see what I'm doing here. I just want to get this first little layer of glass on the hinge because I want 2 layers over the hinge. And then I'm going to take this piece of fabric. Now, when you go to put this on, if you notice I'm laying over my hinges here, I'm going to have to take an X-Acto knife out and cut out little stripes because I want this glass cloth to actually go and wrap around just a little bit so that it's sealing the corners of this, if that makes sense. And again, be careful of your hinge. You don't want to just run over and slop epoxy into your hinge. Now I 3D printed these hinges, and I have tested the hinges outside of being attached to a flying surface, but I have not tested it embedded into the foam yet. So hopefully this makes sense. Cool. Oh, and this did get really, really rigid after it cured last night. So this, even this 3/4 ounce glass cloth I'm using really made this strong. And right here, you want to get it right up to the hinge line. Now you want to get where the hinge is embedded in the foam wet, but you don't want to get the actual hinge pin wet. And like I said last night, if you start getting bubbles in this, you can kind of drag your roller sideways across this and it will pull all the fabric tight. And if you notice, I'm kind of skidding the rollers sideways a little bit, just pulling any puckers in the fabric all the way to the right side here, because I had some little puckers right there. And as I drag it sideways this way, it's pulling anything out, so it makes it really, really lay flat. Okay, now we're going to get into the part that gets really loosey-goosey. So what I'm going to do is take basically a brand new X-Acto blade here. I'm going to cut right there, going to cut right there, and that way it will lay flat. Then I'm going to cut across like that. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a lot of dry cloth right there, and that's fine. You don't want that cloth to be wet up against the actual hinge. You can cut that away later on once this whole thing cures. So far, so good. Now, if you're old like me, your back will really start to hurt about now, but you just power through it. And sorry I started the video so late tonight. I worked a little bit late and then had family time, and now I'm working on the plane. Now, I know on the corners here, I'm going to want those to lay and overlap. Why don't you use a rigid card like a credit card? Because I use the credit cards, and I found out that for me, they're not very good at all. I don't like using the credit card method because you can, real thin fabric, you can actually damage it. And when I use the paper towel is taking all my resin out. So there's no reason to be dragging a hard card across the surface of my glass. On the corners, I always cut out a little bit of a 45. And that way I can wrap this way and wrap that way. I'm going to go ahead and remove a little bit here. And I want that to be able to wrap like that. I'm going to go ahead and remove a little bit of this. I just want this to wrap just around the edge so that it's overlapping on the other glass cloth. And be careful when you go to pull your cloth away, because if there's just one little strand that you didn't cut, like I almost did there, you can pull your glass cloth right up. And that's not really good. Now this is where you've got to be kind of careful, because you're going to take your surface up, you're going to move the fabric underneath the bottom of it so it's folding the right direction, and then I want to wrap this leading edge around onto the other glass cloth. And this is the way it seals all the way around. Hope that's showing up. Just like Hollywood. If you end up with some little bitty hairs, it doesn't matter from the glass cloth, because once this all cures, you can cut those away with an X-Acto knife or whatever you want. I should have cut this back a little bit here, but no big deal. Wrap that around there, just like that. And that's how I get the leading edge of that to wrap around. Now what I want to do is do the sides, which I'm going to use my roller for that. And that's pretty good. Let's see. Okay. Sorry guys, I was just trying to read to see if there's any questions. Now this is where you've got to be really careful is when you start trying to do the other edges, because you want just enough fabric to be able to go around the edge, but you don't want so much fabric that you are fighting it. Because if you can, you want this to be a completely sealed flying surface. So when you paint it, the paint won't eat up your foam. And that's if you use an oil or a lacquer base, which that's, like I said last night, I have not had a lot of luck getting latex thin enough to spray the way I want it to spray. And I know I've gotten emails about adding Windex and alcohol and all kinds of stuff to the latex paint, but it still doesn't seem to spray as fine. And I'm sure somebody can do it. And what I'm going to attempt to do now is seal So what I want to do is I pick it up by a hinge, try to keep the whole thing off the table as long as I can, unless, actually I can put that edge down right there. And what I want to do is I want to roll this other fabric right here back around, and I'm not sure if you can even see that. Nope, sorry guys, hang on a minute. Let me show you what I just did here. Oh, the camera. So if you look at this edge right here, you can see I just wrapped the fabric around it here. So it's on the end here and it's wrapped around the end there. So now I'm going to grab this by another hinge. Maybe I can do it so you can see it a little bit better. But what I'm doing is, you can see this fabric stuck up here. I'm taking my roller and I'm rolling it around the edge. And that way it's completely sealed. See? Isn't that pretty cool? And now I want to try to do the trailing edge, which this thing does get, you got to be really careful, because once you start getting all the edges wet, you run into the possibility of things puckering and not laying down right, and just can become a disaster if you're not careful. And I've had plenty of disasters, so. Just remember, you can always slide your roller sideways and it will pull things tight. And this leading edge here is not working right now, but I'll get it to work here in a minute. or trailing edge, I'm sorry. I think it's actually catching the fabric corner from where I cut the fabric off. The trailing edge, and I didn't sand it, so there's a little bit of a sharp edge right there that it's getting caught on. And if you're going to get your hands really goopy, you should wear gloves. Yep, it's laying down now. Much better. Make sure I'm not puckering anything up too much. Let's get it back on the little jig I made for it. I can see I moved my leading edge a little bit here, which is fine. You can just push it right back around, move your roller sideways, and I'll pull it right back up tight. Yeah, beautiful. So I think this gives you an idea of how I do this. And because my fingers were all over it, I gotta make sure I don't have any little bubbles and stuff in it. And this has turned out really nice. Not sure how good you can all see that, but yeah, this turned out really good. Let's see, I only done a few. I got a panicky interest while watching. You know, look, doing this is nothing but just jumping in with both feet and just going for it. I mean, I have really messed up some glass in my life, okay? I mean, it's, you know, it's really not as easy, I'm sure, as I'm making it look, because I have thrown away a lot of screwed up stuff. But I tell you, this went on pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this. Keep in mind, I am not going for a finish on this that is something that would be in Top Gun. Okay, I'm only going for a finish that I can paint, because this whole plane is going to be painted silver. It's going to have markings on it like on a B-52 or something. It's just going to look stupid as hell. Hang on, I'm going to switch back to the other camera. So, and right now I'm just going to do one of these on the video. I'm not going to do the other one just because it's like watching paint dry, I'm sure, guys. But I'm just paranoid because this went pretty freaking good. I thought these corners were going to be a lot more difficult. And I tell you, it's scary doing this for you all on a video, because if I sit here and just have something go completely wrong, there's going to be about 20 people that will start posting, oh, you should have done this, or you should have done that, or, you know, and then I ask them, well, how many times have you done it? Oh, I've never done it, but Joe did it, or Dirk Diggler did it this way, or Chester Rockwell did it this way. And that just stresses me out, because I only want people to chime in that's actually done it. So, well, cool. I'm glad everybody's able to show up and watch this. I guess the only tips I would say is make sure you got all your prep work done and all your stuff ready. Just have everything around you that you could possibly need. Make sure you always start with a fresh X-Acto knife blade. Don't ever start with one that you've used on anything, because you want it to cut so perfectly through this thin glass cloth. I actually know a person who knows how to sharpen things to surgical levels, like scalpels and stuff, and he'll actually take his X-Acto knife blades and really, really sharpen them so that when you go to cut this cloth, you're not pulling on it. Because all you got to do is get one little string of fiberglass in here, and you pull on it, and it can drag all the fabric all over the place. Now, one thing I want to say, I know an awful lot of people that do the credit card method of squeegeeing out. But, you know, I always did that until I met this old guy who is dead now. And he was glassing a big a Messerschmitt. And he did what I'm doing right now. He glassed it, and then he put the paper towel on it, not toilet paper, and basically started working it from the inside out and seeing if there was any wet spots coming through. And wherever the wet spot was is where he had too much resin on it. And then I can pull this off, and if I end up with any puckers anywhere in it, which I really don't have any, it's the little lines in the foam that's kind of giving me a false illusion that I've got puckers. I don't have puckers. And this has just turned out excellent. So I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, hey, the zap is okay, but experiment with thinning it. Because, how do I say this? If you're doing something small, God, that's a relative term. What's small? If you were going to glass something about this size, or maybe an 80-inch, you know, like Japanese Zero or something, you probably could get by with the zap. But to me, zap is really thick. And I believe you can thin it with alcohol just like you do this. And I think that's what I used to thin my zap with until I found this West system. This West stuff will never, well, I shouldn't say never go bad. I'm sure that 10,000 years from now it'll be bad. But, you know, if I remember right, this is about 20 bucks and this is about 30 or 40 bucks. But, you know, a gallon of this stuff lasts me, I mean, I could probably, with a brand new fresh gallon, glass this entire airplane. So really, if you look at how much zap costs and how far you can get with the zap, this stuff's a lot less money. Because I think zap's still like $12 or $14. Somebody chime in if I'm wrong. But I thought the zap was, I mean, for those two little bottles was like 10 bucks. And, you know, for somebody like me, that's not going to go very far. I keep looking at these lines and seeing an optical illusion. I tell you, it's driving me absolutely nuts thinking I got little bumps in there. But another complicated, now look, my brain's running faster than my mouth. These hinges, if these hinges, when I do some pull testing on them, seem that they are not going to be strong enough, I do have a contingency where I'm going to cut little grooves in the bottom of the surface and actually run the round head 440s down through the foam and then grab the other side, and I know that will be plenty strong enough, but I'm almost 100% sure these will be strong enough. Now, when I go to glass the horizontal stabilizer, it will have the routed slots in it where these hinges are going to lay, but those are going to actually, I'm gluing on the back surface here a real thin layer ABS, so there'll actually be little screws that will go through there and secure that elevator on there really, really tight. So my goal is to, when I get done with the video and you all, I'm going to try to get this one glassed tonight, and then I'm going to prime these tomorrow night, and hopefully have them painted by Thursday or Friday. It's a real busy week with work and family, and I'm not sure how much time I'm going to get each night on this. I probably won't do a video every night as I'm working on this because it just, I think that's silly, even though everybody keeps telling me to do it. And so I think that's it, everybody. So don't be scared of glassing things. I just can't think of anything else that you need to know. I mean, this is not that hard. You just need to jump in and do it. So thanks for watching videos, everybody. I don't know when my next video will be. I'll try to give you a 2 or 3 hour notice. And have an awesome night, everybody. Take it easy. Rock on.